Well, hello everybody. Today we're going to be creating a money exchange. Last time I did a video like this, it was on the subject of making money, I guess a savable type. And so I'm going to be using that savable type, money, M-U-N-N-Y, and we're going to create an exchange. My aim is to be able to manage accounts that are in different currencies, so I want to be able to exchange them. In the last golang video, I came up with a money type which I was going to use for all of my money needs. Well, an exchange kind of fits that, and I'm actually going to do it in the same library so we can come up with a concept of what an exchange could look like and how accounts could use it. Vim exchange.go. That makes as much sense as any, doesn't it? Package money. Now inside this package we are going to need an exchange. So let's start with our exchange and see what else we end up with from there. So we'll make it an interface. Type exchanger interface. And so this will be basically anything that has the following two methods. Exchange, and now we need to take a current an amount, which is of course it's a type M, and then we need two currencies. So C1, our currencies will just be stored as string. It's an easy way of doing that. So we take an amount and then a currency from, and an amount and currency to, and it takes a time. So I want it to be able to work at different times and produce different results. So it will take a time, and then when it will create a transaction, that will be based on the time as well. So hopefully this will be a deterministic function. I realize that changes, I guess, as things, but it shouldn't matter because the exchanges will be fixed. So never mind that. This needs to return an amount and an error, I guess. And I also want this account to have an ID so that when I make my accounts, and we'll use string as IDs for our accounts. That makes as much sense as any. So let's come up with a concept of storing accounts. My feeling is an account is an ID, and every account needs to have a couple of details. One, who owns it, and if the account says who owns it, then that provides a bit of security. And two, what currency it's in. I mean, we can work out all the money because we're going to make a ledger, so we have a list of all transactions. If you want to calculate how much money you have, look at all the transactions and see that. So I won't store an amount. So type account, and that needs, that's a struct, and that will have an owner. Again, we'll just use strings, and it will have a currency, which is also string. Probably tempted to make currency its own type. We'll I'll consider that later. It's not important right now. String will do the job. So we've got every account will have its currency. So when you want to move money from an account that's one currency to an account that's another currency, you can't do that directly. You can only move money to accounts between accounts of the same type. And so this exchanger will have multiple accounts in their name, and that will allow us to send them money in one type and receive money back in another type, and the money still makes sense. I mean, you can't create money out of nowhere, can you? Anyway, carrying on, there is our exchanger has to have these methods. So we'll make a basic exchange. Type basic exchange struct, and this will have, I guess, rates, and that will be a slice of rate. That probably should be lowercase. I don't see any reason anyone else needs to use rates quite like this. they want to write their own exchange, they can do it how they want, store whatever information they want. So we use a type of rate, and that's again a struct, isn't it? And a rate will be an integer. It'll be a float, right? Money's actually integers, but I think I need to work with float for the rate because I need to do some funny stuff, and then the exchange can decide how it handles it properly. So if the rate is a float, it needs to have a currency from, a currency to, currency from, currency to, and they will be strings. And then so it's currency from, currency to, and then the last thing it needs is an actual conversion, I guess. I don't want to call it rate conversion, and that will be a float 32 for now. Why isn't that highlighted? That's better. That's right. So get rid of that problem there. So basically we just have a list of rates, and the rates will say where from, where to, and it also needs an ID, so we'll just call that and that's a string. So we can create our basic exchange that does this, and then it will need to be able to come up with the rates appropriate to the thing. So let's fulfill the interface. Bunk. Oh, that should be capital. B basic exchange, and this is exchange, and it will take an amount. It will take fchar, tchar, both string, and then it will take t, which is time, dot time, and then it will return error. Feels like a lot of parameters, but actually it's not that many. What do? We just loop through, yeah? For k comma v colon equals range be dot rates, and if v dot c from equals fchar and v dot c2 equals tchar, then we have a rate, don't we? Perfect. And we can just reply return am. Oh, funny type stuff here. No worries. Float 32 times v dot conv. Oh, they're all C, aren't they? That's silly. Then we need to turn that back to money. So and of course there's no error, so we return nil. If we get all the way through our rates and we do not have a valid exchange rate, then we will return 0, and we will return errors.new, no rate available. That will do the job, won't it? let's be more specific. From %s to %s. And the well, that's F cur and T cur, isn't it? Yeah, that's pretty clear. Let's just check the top and see that I've got the right errors package. No. github.com/pkg/errors. Cool. And time as well. Good. Next thing we need, func UID. So I guess that's a user ID for the exchange. So it's a basic exchange one. BE basic exchange UID, which returns a string, and that string is return be.id. So I guess that fulfills our exchange requirements. That's a good start. Now, onwards and upwards. We will need some means of tracking the accounts in the system. We have a definition of an account. So let's just assume we've got a map of accounts, shall we? We'll take that in our exchange thing. So to run an actual exchange operation, func exchange we'll just call it exchange for now. I realize it's the same name as the basic exchange as exchange, but it's a different function. Should be okay. And we're going to exchange. We need an amount. The from ID, so the ID is the to ID, so that should be an M, and these two should be strings, and then we need a list of accounts, or a map, don't we? It's a map of accounts. I feel like I want to make this a type, but we'll leave it we'll leave it here for now. Map ACs, AC list we'll call it, and that is a map that goes from string to account. And it's going to need the exchange we're going to use, so we need to tell it which exchange that is, and that's a function. Oh no, it's not. It's an interface. So ex, which is our exchanger. The theory, and what I really want to do, is I want people to be able to have their own exchanges and be able to reference the different exchanges so that they can have their own accounts. I mean, this is way more complicated, I guess, than I need for most of my cases, but I'm trying to work out an app for well, I've got an app I'm doing for pocket money at the moment, and yeah, that doesn't work in multiple accounts, but it would be kind of fun if it did. So exchange from ID to ID, so then it will find the account and it's going to return two transactions. Why two transactions? And an error, I guess. Why two transactions? Well, basically because when you make an exchange, there are two transactions that happen, aren't there? And it's you kind of want to roll them into one, maybe, but I think I want to have them. I guess I'd like to link them. some way. Maybe have some kind of shared ID thing. I'll come up with a system for that later. For now, I need a transaction type, don't I? So let's have a type. Type transaction, and it's a struct. Okay, so it has an from string to string. We'll give it a transaction ID. So these IDs are account IDs, and the to ID is that's the transaction ID. Let's call it TR ID just to make sure that's slightly more clear. And then obviously it needs an amount. One of the things I wanted to do, and this is way more complicated and certainly not going to happen this time, is actually to have the transaction, the exchanges run as external programs that can be requested. Are they willing to do this? They have an ID and they'll have a thing, so they can register with the account, and then it can ask. And even better, they will be able to sign them with a public key. Say, I vouch for this transaction between this person and this person, and I sign it, put it on the system. And that way, if there's any debate, we can say, no, we've got proof. You signed this one here. And I mean, that's a bit of a more full system. And I think that, I mean, it's not that far from a public ledger like the blockchain-y thing. I realize it doesn't have the blocks, but at least you've got some vouchable transactions, so that they're actually cryptographically signed for tracking money. So every time you make a transaction, you have to sign it with your sign it with your private key, so that people can vouch that you actually signed it. Not going to worry about that right now. Let's do a transaction needs a from, a to, a transaction ID just cause. We'll have a link ID, so we can say that this transaction is connected to that transaction, and we'll have an amount, and that will be of type money.m. So the M here is of course the type that I created before to use, and it's in the other file in this package. So don't worry too much about that. Just know that it will take a type of money, and that's just an int, and multiply it by various amounts. So now our exchanger needs to do a couple of things. First, it needs to read the AC list and find the accounts, the appropriate accounts, because for the from and to accounts, because those from accounts don't exist. So we'll have a frac, that's from account, comma OK, colon equals AC list at FRID. Because if there's no account, we don't know anything about them. If not OK, then we need to return an error, don't we? We also need to return two bad transactions, or two transactions that didn't happen. Now, I don't want to write transaction squiggly every time, so I'm just going to write bad colon equals transaction squiggly. And then actually, you know, when we write our error, now this isn't official convention, I guess, but return bad errors.errorf. What are we doing here? It's the error is there is no account, right? From account not found. And the from account so that's okay. We need exactly the same for the to account. to ID. If not, okay, then return bad errors.errorf to account not found %s to ID. Okay, so we've got our accounts. Assuming that they have the currency details, we can now ask our exchanger if it's willing to make the exchange, if it has a rate for that exchange. So we will later, of course, need to check that the exchanger has the accounts appropriate for this, but we'll do that in a second. ex.x, so res amount error colon equals ex dot exchange. Why is that not found? I had that problem last time, but did I call it a lowercase exchanger? Silly me. I think this is probably a core part of the API, is letting people copy the interface. I realize it can be lowercase because I'll leave it public for now. Exchanger ex dot exchange, and again it's amount, and then it's from account dot currency to ac dot to account dot currency, and then time. Oh, this needs to take a time, doesn't it? Our exchange method. We'll call it T. And then we'll just send it T. I don't actually know if this is... I'm going to call build and see if there's any big problems here. Go build, see what we get. There should be a couple of errors to fix. 40, type M is not an expression. Exchange 40. Oh, haha. Yep. Line 50, undefined transaction. Have we not defined transaction yet? We haven't. Well, let's define... No, we have. Transaction. Okay. Here it is. And line 63. Missing return. There's actually quite a bit to return here, so because we need to return the two transactions, so I'm just going to return bad, nil, and put it to do here. At least it'll compile, and maybe that's not ideal. Let's see if it does compile. K declared and not used. Well, there's a surprise. Okay. I always do that. I always declare the K and then go. So, we now have an amount. We should check if that error is not there. If error does not equal nil, we need to return a thing, right? Return bad errors dot wrap and we're going to wrap error with exchange refused to exchange. And that's something it can do, right? Different exchanges may have an upper limit on what they're willing to trade, right? I'm only willing to trade up to £100 in a single transaction, or something like that. That's up to the exchange, what errors they return. So it's just a refusal. If it returns an error, that's a refusal to exchange. And that covers that. Then we have another case, which is we need to then check that the exchanger has the accounts in order to make the exchange, right? So the first thing we need to do, we need to check, we need to loop through the accounts list that we get and find the accounts for the trader which match the appropriate currency. Now the exchanger, I've actually set the basic exchange doesn't know those. I guess that would be a thing that it could be required to return in this, but I feel like the information is in the account list, so let's just look in the account list and see. So each exchange can only have one currency and one account in each currency, which may not be perfect, but it's near enough. So let's make that then. We can loop. Let's do it for now. Let's do it for _k, comma v colon equals range AC list. Now exchanger has an ID, right? EXID colon equals BE dot UID, not BE. Yeah, it is. Oh, it's EX. So probably don't need that because it's only a single function, but we are going to be calling it several times throughout the loop, so I guess minor optimization, not that important. For I, we've got the list. If v dot owner equals equals EXID and v dot currency is equal to FR AC.cur, and then we have a receiving account, right? If we don't, then so we'll call it into AC colon E. You know, I actually will need that K. Colon equals empty string. And from out of, so this is the exchanges things. AC colon equals empty string. This K will be a string because the list is it's a map from string. Then into AC colon equals K. If v dot owner equals XID, so we're just checking again that it's that the account that we're looking for is one of his accounts, and v dot currency is equal to account dot currency. Then we put out of AC colon equals This should probably be ID. If into ID does not equal if into ID is equal to the empty string, then we need to return an error, don't we? Return bad errors dot new. We'll do error f. Exchange cannot receive currency and that currency is frac.gar. Because that's how we know it couldn't find it, is because it didn't find the result. So we got that. If out of ID is equal to the empty string, then we also need to return bad errors dot error f. Exchange cannot pay out currency, and that's 2ac dot currency. So if it doesn't have these accounts, then we know they don't exist. We now know that the account list has access to these things. So at this point we can now create our transactions, can't we? So intran colon equals transaction, and the from ID is FRID 2 colon, and that's into ID. What other option we got? We got from to the amount. Well, this is the original amount, right? So that's AM. And the transaction ID get ID. I know get ID doesn't exist. I'm just going to write a function quickly that will get us an ID and then fix it. So this will return a string, and why not have a private global variable? So string doesn't exist as a type. That does. New transaction ID, that feels much more go-y. Return. I think that needs a word var there, doesn't it? Yeah. So last transaction ID plus plus return string convert dot I to a on last transaction ID. That's a terrible, terrible function, but it'll do us our job and give them all unique. Well, assuming it's asynchronous, we'll fight that some other time. So, this was now new transaction ID. And link ID can be 0. And that with a comma. So that's our in transaction. Our out transaction. Well, this is obviously, it's going to ID. And this is out of ID. So it comes from, into, out of, to. Maybe that's not the best way. The amount has to be the other one. It's is it res? Res amount, yeah, that makes sense. New transaction ID. And oh no, I do want to link those, don't I? Let's link them. So tr1 trid no trid1 can't equals trid2 equals, and then trid1 trid2. Missing comma before new line inside the thing. Here it is. Okay, so now we're no longer returning bad, we're returning intran, outtran, and nil. Now, I kind of believe that that exchange will do the majority of what I want. Shall we try this? Let's see about making a basic exchange. That could probably do with doing something different, but okay. Tab edit exchange underscore test dot go. Okay. Package money func test capital T test exchange happy. So this requires T, which is a pointer to testing.t. Nothing unusual there. Now we need to create our rates, don't we? Rates equals slice of rates and so okay, I'm just going to create a couple of constants here just for they'd be handy for most people anyway. Const we need we'll call one USD equals USD, GBP equals GBP, CAD I mean, that doesn't do a whole lot, but it does at least provide a bit of safety that you've got a real account if you use those. So our rate from USD to GBP is, oh, this needs wiggly braces. That was what that one was for. And that rate is 1.5. Let's try that. And our rate, we're going to have a terrible exchange here. Our rate from GBP to USD equals 0.5. In case you ever wonder where the exchanges make their money, that's it. Right there. I'm sure you knew that already. Let's carry on. Test exchange, happy. Testing.t. Yeah, we're happy with that. So, we have a test exchange. So we've got the rates. Now we need to make a basic exchange. So basic exchange rates and ID equals EX. So we've got a basic exchange. Although that's just an expression, we need to BE colon equals. Don't want to cover that. There's a comma missing. Equals 12.6. Oh. Try that. So we have our basic exchange and it has some rates for transfer. We need some accounts. Accounts equals map string account. And again, we need 4 accounts here. We need EX1, which belongs to EX and is in USD. Comma. I'm going to put a comma there, a wiggly brace, and let's see what we get, see if there are any complaints. That wiggly brace ought to go to that one. Missing comma before a new line in composite literal. Okay, so we've got one. I'll put the comma back on here. A new line here. New line here. We need an EX2, and that is also in EX, comma, and this one is GBP. And then I need a from account, so we'll call it F. And this will be owned by MT, which is me, for Matt. And it will be in GBP. And the money is going to and that can be owned by someone else in theory, so let's get RC, I don't know, receiver, but they want USD. So I'm going to exchange the money and send it to someone else. Alright, so I have a list of accounts. The next thing I need to do is I'm going to send my basic exchange in this. So EX control. That's the one I want. So first it takes the amount of money. I want to exchange £1. I'm going to send £1 from T to F. The account list is accounts. The exchanger is BE, and the time is time dot now, I guess. The exchanger doesn't use the time to change. Like in theory, some exchanges will be dependent on the time or something. So then I'm going to get back 2 exchanges and an error, right? 2 transactions, T1, T2, error. Yeah, and if error does not equal nil, then we've had some mistake. I think I've got a legitimate account test thing here. So if the error is not nil, then we have a problem. So t dot error, yeah, and we'll just post error. Can't be bothered to fight that right now. If T2, now how much money should we have? Let's see if we can calculate this. I am sending £1 from my GBP account into T's USD account. So it should take the GBP, times it by a half, and get a USD value. I think it's the other way around, isn't it? It doesn't matter. So this is what should happen. You guys can work out what the real exchange rates ought to be. So I should get 50, or T should end up with 50p at the end of this, shouldn't they? So if T2 dot amount does not equal 50, and then we have an error. T dot error expected 50 got %D T2 dot amount. Okay, that should cover that. Let's run the test. Go test dot dash dot 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 problems. 9 rate. Undefined rate? Did I call it? I did, didn't I? The problems are all in the exchange, aren't they? 18 undefined accounts. "19 missing key in map literal." I have no idea what that means. Oh! I think that's my mistake. Oh, into ID and out of ID are declared and not used in the exchange. That doesn't make sense. Oh, here. Common mistake I make. You don't want to shadow it. I want to actually okay. T1 declared and not used. Oh yeah. Let's do a test on T1. If T1 dot from does not equal MT, then it's not assigned. T dot error. T1 should be from MT. Got M, and then T1 dot from, and I'll close that, build that. Ooh, we had a fail. Did it send the transaction? It looks to no. It got the my percents are wrong, but we got T1 saying it's going to 2. I think I've got those two the wrong way around. Let's put the F on these so that it prints them correctly. Oh, there was another one. This one's the one that needed the F. And over here, let's just make sure that we're giving the right answers. Intran, outtran. If this isn't working, then there's clearly something gone wrong. Which is why we do tests, right? Yay. So, MT. Let's make sure I'm sending this correctly. I'm sending 100 from... Oh, there's the mistake. The mistake is in the test. Because F, it should go from into to. That might make that work. Can I use error? What else changed? Oh yeah, of course. Okay. Exchange should be from MT, but actually it's got F because it's from the account, not the user. So actually, it's the correct answer. It should be from F. My test was wrong, not the actual code, because these are the accounts that it's supposed to come from, and so the ID response expected should be that. And then we can find out who owns the account here. Right, let's try that again. I think this will pass the test, and it feels really bad. I'm just correcting the tests until it passes, but it was the tests that were wrong. Okay, that's basically what I wanted to do. So if this makes sense, now we can have a list of accounts and we end up with a list of transactions. You know, we do all of these exchanges, and some of them can just be direct transactions too. So we'll end up creating a transaction list. I actually did this using a pure function, right? Because in general, if you can use a pure function, you should. It's just a general feeling I have. The fewer the side effects, the better. Although, and part of me doesn't like the fact that I receive this map. I feel like it should be locked down slightly more. I'll ponder the consequences of that at some other point. I mean, the thing is, I thought that it shouldn't be accessible at all, that it should be something that guarantees it can't read, that has a wrap. But eventually you can find your way through these pointers in some ways, can't you? No, I guess not. You can hide it inside something as a private variable. So, anyway, our exchange basically creates two transactions, and it gives them a link to each other. These can then be added to to a list of transactions, and then we can calculate how much money every person has. So we could actually do this now, create a few transactions, add them all to the list, and then find out how much money is in each account at the end of this whole story. I feel like that should be relatively trivial to do. In fact, that's kind of the point in this library, is that it does the difficult bit, and you can just run a for loop through the ledger and have a good result. Hopefully that's enough workable code for you to look at and enjoy. I will see you in the near future. Do take a look at the stuff about the games that I've been working on. I'd really like to see this first past the post game go somewhere. So take a look at the stuff I've just posted about that, but there's gonna get more on that later, as I try and post a thing with the entire rules and I try and fix the game. I'm always looking for testers on that. See you in the near future. Have a great week. Have a great couple of weeks, and I'll be back with something new, programmy or gamey. Stop recording.